we at Watermark have seen so many companies that have crossed our paths in the firm that what we would say are in no man's land. So first, let's say, what does that mean? My view of no man's land are companies that are maybe the metaphor healthy but not an athlete, i.e. they may be 20, 25 million in revenues or 40 million in revenues, but they're pre-inflection point. And that's a phrase used by David Thomason, I believe, of Blueprint to a Billion, that says most commonly inflection points occur with private companies when they hit 50 million in revenues. That's been the most common place. That very hard to get there. If you can get there and break through, there's typically, it's not easy, the path is not going to be easier, but there's now momentum going forward. So many companies we see don't reach that inflection point, and they're in no man's land, meaning it's tough, and they see that same world year after year. And so they become maybe complacent, or they're used to the status quo. So I want to ask you just some questions about no man's land. What is a trap for companies that enter no man's land? What's a trap once they get there in no man's land?
Okay. Well, one thing to think about is there's not a sign that says you are now entering no man's land.
Right.
So you don't sort of just do that in the last half mile. You do it for a long time. So you get into it and you sort of evolve into it. Two key things you've talked about, and one of them is the idea that if you've achieved a certain amount of success, you're athletically or otherwise, you sort of fall into sort of a glide path. You just sort of, you begin to sort of, in some ways, mail it in. You're not really paying attention. It's not every at-bat, every decision is you're really looking at it and you're involved in it the same way. So you get lazy. Mm-hmm. We just do. And in a lot of ways, it's going from as an athlete, going from your 20s to your 30s. Being an athlete in your 30s, you got to win different ways than you won when you were in your prime. And so you're not in your prime anymore, but you have lots of other assets. You have to learn how to use them. So you can't get lazy. You can't get lazy and you can't get fat. The second part is that you can let your organization get fat or complacent because it's been successful at doing certain things and there's a tendency to want to continue to do those things. And some of them just need to be destroyed and thrown out because they're not, everybody knows them, they're not as effective anymore, and so you've got to figure out the next thing. So you've got to be willing to reinvent your business. Doesn't mean go into a different market space, it means reinvent. You find it with lots of companies, like we were talking about a trucking company earlier, the notion of where you made your money from certain aspects of the business, the trucking part, but now everybody's doing that and that's become sort of a commodity or sort of a red ocean. Mm-hmm. And the opportunities, you may not stop doing that, it may still be profitable, but your growth opportunity is somewhere else, which may be in the storage business or other things that are related to logistics and things you do. So you got to be willing to reinvent the business, which leverages off the knowledge you've got. Staying too long at the party is not only socially a faux pas, it's a bad thing for your business too.